Welcome back to video number 7. Here I'm going to be diving into the podcast page and a little bit about the blog. So if you're unfamiliar, the way Showit works is it integrates with WordPress, which is the blogging platform, and Showit controls kind of the styling and the layout and the aesthetics of the blog. So the two work together to display content on your website. So let's navigate over to one of our blog templates. The podcast page is a blog template, and I'll show you a little bit about how that works. So go into the podcast, you'll see this is our page. You'll link these buttons to like the icons and the actual text. You'll link them to listening on Spotify or Google or iTunes. And then you can customize this with some of your metrics. Of course, you want to swap out this image here and this text to reflect your podcast. You'll also want to go through and link your what's called your most popular episodes. So it works exactly the same way. You'll just put in the title of your episode and then link both the text and the button. Remember, if you click on both of them, you can go to click actions and link them both at the same time and hit configure link, and you will link that to the URL on Spotify or iTunes or wherever your podcast is able to be listened to. So this all works just the way a standard Showit page does. Where it's a little different is down here you have this canvas called blog post, and this is how you are going to get your podcast episodes to pull in. So you can see it looks a little funny right now, you just have one, but if we go to the demo page, which you can delete once you download the template, you'll see that this is how the episodes will appear. So the category will be podcast, it'll have the episode, and then when you click on this, it's going to take you to the actual page that displays your content. So if you want to put like the show notes for your podcast, if you want to put a description, you can import the actual audio here if you'd like to, and then you'll have like a comment form. So this works very similar to the typical blog page. So this would be the blog homepage. The homepage of your blog will have different categories here, and I'll show you how to link those up in a minute. And then it works the same way. So right now, these are in our Canvas views. So these are the 3 posts that'll populate across, and then you'll get another row and another row as you make more blog posts. And then to view older ones, you'll click on this button, and to click on older posts, you'll click on this button, and navigate to newer posts, you'll click on this side. Then it's got just a little call to action to the about page, testimonial, and this works the same way as a normal Canvas. So really, it's just these parts that are in Canvas views. Those are where Showit pulls in the blog information. Now, you're going to be blogging in the WordPress side, which I'll show you in the next video, a complete tutorial on how to do that. Right now, I just want you to understand that Showit controls the styling, and this is going to be how it pulls in your content. So when someone clicks on a blog post, for example, say they click on this first blog post that pops up, they're going to be directed to the single page. So if we click on single post, it's the same kind of format that I showed you earlier, where you're going to have the category, the title of your post, and then the actual content. So you kind of want to think of the podcast page as having a secondary blog. So you have the podcast, which is technically a blog page, and then you have the actual blog page. And both work exactly the same way by pulling in content from WordPress. The only difference is that the podcast page is only going to pull in content that you tag inside of WordPress as podcast. It's a category. So remember, under most popular episodes, wherever you see this, whether it's on the podcast page or I think it's actually on other pages inside the just regular pages on your site. For example, here, this podcast, these you're going to link manually. So you're going to click on here and click on the little icon, configure link, and set the URL. Whereas on the blog page inside the podcast template, so blog, podcast, this you'll link manually just like I showed you, and then going down here, this is where it's going to automatically pull the 3 most recent blog posts that you have tagged as podcast. So instead of a URL, when I click on this image, or I click on this arrow, or I click on this title, you can see it's linking to WordPress posts, which just means it's going to pull up this exact post, and it will look like the podcast single page. So before we go into the WordPress side and get into the nitty-gritty of blogging and setting up those categories and stuff, you will need to go up into your menu and into your footer. I'll show you an example on the footer here. You're going to go to edit, and then you're going to click on the podcast, and you want to change it from the demo page to the actual podcast page. So you want it to click on here. So you'll just go in and change that. That way, when someone clicks on this link, they are not directed to the demo page and they are directed to the actual podcast page that will be updating with your content. You will do the exact same thing for the menu up here on podcast, and for this little icon here, you can have it go to your podcast page, or if you want to have it go to like your iTunes or your Spotify or Google Podcasts, you can link it there as well. So just to recap, because I know the blog can be a little bit confusing, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go through and delete the pages that say delete this right here. Then you're going to go to your regular blog page. This is your blog home, and you're going to come up with 3 categories for your content. So one is going to be podcast if you're choosing to have a podcast. One is going to be, category A, and the other one is category B. Then for the actual podcast page, you are going to link the menu and the footer. And remember, those are site canvases, so they're going to populate throughout the site. You only have to do it once. You're also going to go through and link these buttons to your iTunes and Spotify. And then on the popular episodes, you are going to link those to, your top 5 episodes or your favorite episodes. And you'll do the same thing on the regular services page side. I'm sorry, not services page, the regular Showit pages side. So join me in video number 8. We are going to talk all about logging into WordPress, setting up your categories and your podcast page, and give you a basic tutorial on blogging.